the brain, what is the function of our brain, is trying to create a narrative that has internal and external sense, internal and external coordination, And when we have mental problems is when the internal history that we are explaining to ourselves related to the external history that we are explaining to people around us is unbalanced, is not coordinated. And this is when stress, anxiety, depressions come. When we feel that what we are offering outside is far away, is not connected within the things that we have inside. And in that sense, our brain, our mind have the capacity to create everything we want.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Labours of Sports Coaching. In today's episode, I was joined by Alejandro Sanchez, who is a UEFA Pro licence holder, a football coach turned educator, turned now football director, working in the Middle East at the moment. I've had an extremely long and high quality career across Spain, and most notably working within Real Madrid Football Club and being a director for the Masters programme that runs at Universidad de Europea. We talk about Alejandro's career trajectory and some of the lessons that he's learned. And it's a really interesting conversation because it did very much go away from a lot of the sort of cliches that you hear and does touch on a lot of the realities, both in terms of personal branding, but how also people sometimes get discouraged and disillusioned by where they're currently at in their own career trajectory, often because there's a misalignment. And we go almost philosophical with this and a misalignment between the internal and the external. And we also touch upon things like international culture, football being a global market, but I would probably again extend that to other sports coaching markets and vocations within sports coaching. So we chat about all of that, to then also talking a little bit about the role of project management within sport as a sort of stepping stone sometimes towards, the next level in coaching and some of the requirements of that too. So really, really interesting conversation, very inspiring actually in a way, just to hear from such a successful coach and to understand the nuance of how he created a niche for himself and what his sort of philosophy of thought is that he carries with him in his everyday professional life. And I think for many of us that are listening, there'll be a lot that you can take from this conversation regardless of where you're at in your own career journey. So with that, let's get into it. So, Alex, it's great to have you here. How are you to begin with?
All good. Thank you very much. All good. Very happy because we have no winter in Saudi. So it's always 28 degrees. So we are fantastic. I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, I wish you hadn't said that because I think today's a high of maybe 3 degrees at the moment in Scotland. Yeah. So it's a slightly different climate. Not too much rain, which is always a good one, at least for the present moment. So great. So I want to get into it with you. We're going to chat about, obviously, your career journey today, and I think what we can maybe take from that, both insofar as your knowledge around coaching, but also in terms of the evolution of your position into more of a project management role across the different organisations that you've worked with. But let's rewind it a little bit and start to maybe, if you can maybe take us down the sort of journey you went on as a coach to date. So in terms of, if we can maybe chart, and I know that's not an easy question to begin on, but how could we maybe chart your development as a coach from day one to now? What have you been moving through insofar as learning experiences that you have had that perhaps listeners might be able to pay attention to, just given the wealth of knowledge that you've accrued over the years and the experiences that you've had?
So in my case, I knew really early that I wanted to become head coach. Was kind of this adolescent, 15, 16 years dream where you're asking to yourself, the school are starting to ask, guys, you need to start thinking about what do you want to develop as a professional career, And in my case, was really quick. It's going to be football, always football. I used to play at the time more or less good level, always playing against Barcelona. I'm Real Madrid fan, so I was really always motivated to play against Barcelona, these kind of things. And I decided, so I want to become coach. So the question is how I become the best coach in the world. No? And the answer was sports science. So let's go there to the bachelor, do sports science. And at the same time, obviously, you need to go to federations and develop UEFA license. At that time, when I started in Spain, we had only 3 levels of UEFA. That was UEFA B, UEFA A, and UEFA Pro, maximum level. No? So with 20 years old, I was already in the Bachelor of Sports Science, and I was developing my UEFA license. And at the same time, I was not playing more as a football player, or I used to play, but in a really amateur level. So kind of the progression in pro career as a player stopped. So I started to coach 20 years old. I was like 19, 20 years old in the first team. U9, you 10 years old. Benjamin was in one of my former clubs. No, so one of the goals that I put to myself was you need to study the bachelor, you need to study the license, and at the same time, you need to be in all the steps of the academic process for understanding the different development stages of human beings through an academic process. And this is what I did until the 26, 27 years old. I did that. I finished my bachelor in sports science. I got the UEFA B, the UEFA A, and at the same time I did U10, U11, U12, U13, U14, U16. I did both. At the same time, as we were speaking before, inside the different clubs I were, and this was more related to kind of natural abilities, not because I was studying them in the sports science, because one of my pathways in the sports science was related to high performance, kind of understanding physiology and biomechanics. I love these kind of lectures and lessons, because it was really focusing in development or trying to understand the human body development, how to increase performance through increase the activity of the body of the players. But naturally skills, it looks that I had natural abilities to be in kind of management positions. I was a really organized guy, had kind of social abilities for trying to bring out, or if not the best, at least trying to encourage people around me. And I was all the time like managing sections, like manage the age between 10 and 14, or the academy director in the non-performant stage of the club, these kind of clubs that they have the social and the high performance. So I was coaching in the high performance, but managing the social, always working with kids, 5, 6, 7, always in this kind of projects. And at some point, I did an Erasmus. I went to Italy. I did the same in Italy. I was with the U14, U13 in Italy. I was studying in Italy. I wanted to learn a different approach to the training process that obviously being in Spain, I had the Spanish way of training. I went to Italy, developed that, came back to Spain. At some point, some people called me to become teacher of the UEFA license. So I started to teach in the Catalonian federations the UEFA license, UEFA B and UEFA A. And at that point, I was 27, 28. I realized, analyzing the industry, that our football industry, was really tough in the sense of trying to do the jump to professional. My career was good. I was really recognized in Barcelona and in Catalonia as a teacher, as a coach inside the clubs. But I realized at that point that it was really difficult becoming coach in first and second division. Main of the roles, naturally, the industry is offering to former players. This is something that at that time, I didn't understand. And it was like something that was giving me a lot of frustration in the sense of why a former player need to have this kind of elite opportunities in B teams or straight in senior teams, while there's people that we are working a lot, studying a lot, doing bachelors, taking the license, doing masters, moving around continents or cities or trying to become. And one guy that was only pro player with no background, no knowledge, now suddenly they are receiving these opportunities. This was frustrating me as a person. And I decided that, look, I'm not able to, or I thought that it's going to be really difficult for me doing this professional jump to these professional categories, first and second division. And I discovered that the international project for Spanish coaches was going to be the easiest, or at least was going to be easier than staying in Spain trying to reach professional contracts or big contracts. And I tried to pursue this second pathway in the sense of let's put myself in the position of getting some international contracts. I got it. I got my first professional contract outside, was in Africa with 29 years old. It was a big one. The conditions, I moved to Angola. The conditions in Angola were really huge in terms of apartment, car, big salaries, really big conditions. And from there, like, I want to continue internationally. From Angola, I moved to Middle East. That Middle East at that time, I'm speaking 8-9 years ago, started to grow as a region on the world that wanted to improve football projects. So it was a really nice condition. And from there, I came back to Spain, to Madrid. Yeah, man, all the career, my international profile, you have been in European universities, so my international profile was fitting really well with European university in terms of international profile. And I have been there many years.
And could we, maybe let's pause at the point where you've now reached University at the Europea, because there's a lot of really interesting things that have come out there just as you spoke about. And what seems to come through to me is you seem to have found a way to leverage your skill set and apply it to more open markets in order to sort of progress a bit better within coaching. Because, or what's your thoughts on that? Because it's interesting, like you mentioned, even the very fact that you've got a bit of more of an educational background in sports science with physiology and biomechanics. The more common coach, normally, you don't really know, at least in my experience, not a lot of coaches normally down the sports science route. It's more pedagogy, it's more what we assume to be more mainstream coaching related skills. But I would like to know what benefits is just one leverage, I think, if I'm correct, you might have brought to your career trajectory. What leverage did having a sports science background, even if you're not going to work as a sports scientist or a strength and conditioning coach, how has that helped you being a football coach?
For me, one important thing, when I was young and I was looking at all coaches, I hate something and I didn't understand. People that they were working in different industries, I don't know, in banks and finance and whatever, bus driver, because here in Spain, coaches are doing all the different jobs in the world, and then there are coaches in the afternoon. And for me, it was like, no sense. So if I want to become coach, I need to study something related to that. And I want to transform coaching in my main activity. So I need to understand how I'm able to produce. And for me, the answer was sports science. Because when for me, someone that want to become coach is like, how I'm able to become the best coach is like, how I'm able, the answer is what a coach does, usually. And what you need to be doing as a coach is improving performance level of player, and obviously players play with their own body. So, and in that sense, the answer was in the sports science. When I finished sports science, I continued doing the same question. So how am I able to continue improving the performance of my team? So at that moment, when I finished the bachelor, I understood that I was really good in terms of organizing the microsite. I understood the load management. I understood how to bring gym and this is strength training to the players, to how to reduce injury processes. So really what mainly all physical coaches are doing, The sports science is a physical training. But in my case, I was thinking bigger or wider than only becoming physical trainer. I was like, okay, what was missing in this sports science bachelor that can help me for being better football coach? There was a part of technical, tactical knowledge that obviously in the Bachelor of Sports Science we did, but it was answered in the license. UEFA license is basically based on that, at least in Spain. It's basically based on technical, tactical aspect. The approach, the reflection, the content of what is more football related. And my point was human behavior. It's like how I'm able, now it's not the body, now I understand the body. The point is how I increase human behavior. And the answer to how to increase human behavior is psychology. It's neuroscience. Was no other way of finding this knowledge. And this is why my master's I did too after the bachelor was based on that. Was on psychology, psychobiology, and neuroscience. And this is where I found all the knowledge, the strategies, the understanding of how the brain works. And after the Bachelor of Sports Science, it's like I had how human body works. I understand the brain, and now I'm able to put both of them together. And at the same time, I discovered how poor 20 years ago, we connected the knowledge related to human behavior or body behavior and mental brain behavior. And this split is something that for me is not, the word is scary. It's not scary, but it's surprising now with the knowledge I have. How is for me kind of all the content that we are teaching in the sports science will need to be changed, understanding that it's impossible to understand body behavior without mental brain behavior. And the opposite, it's impossible to understand how our brain and mind works if you are not understanding the body. And I think that the knowledge is really split in what we are doing in the sports science. So in my case, I needed to put all of this together, and this helped me bring into the industry, understand that if I wanted to be involved in football, choosing only one unique pathway, means head coach, was going to be like 0.1% of chances to have a long career. Was like, no way. So sometimes I will have the opportunity of being head coach, but sometimes maybe there is not going to be a bench for me. So I need to be accepting of the positions that my knowledge can help me. And in that sense, I have been physical trainer. I have been a stage coordinator or manager. I have been academy director. I have been helping in a sporting direction more related to general management of club. I have been in scouting processes. So I have been methodological director, more kind of developing talent development program. And in the past year, so I have been creating a master. I have been teaching. So, and the point of that was kind of understanding that it's really difficult, and kind of the percentage of possibilities from one non-professional player becoming or doing a career only based in head coaching, for me, is close to impossible. So it was kind of surviving in the industry. If you want to survive in the industry, I won't always be in football. You need to be able to be adaptable in terms of doing many things inside the clubs.
Because I think there is a bit of a rhetoric, isn't there, around you need to be fully committed in a very singular goal and singular purpose. But I think when we talk about statistics, where it's just the likelihood of actually getting into that 1% who do, get to these really elite positions, I think it would serve the employer more than it serves you if you have such a narrow route in the way that you educate yourself, or at least in the way in which you could potentially get employability. Because it sounds like, as well in the meantime, you've got that singular focus. You've also made yourself extremely valuable to lots of different people in a way
for me,
as a means of moving forward or entering that sector in a different way, perhaps.
For me, something that I learned very early was, and it's going to be the message for my kids. So it's like, you are free to work in whatever industry you want. Is that for my kids? The message is like, you choose, as I did. I was lucky enough for having a family that told me, you choose. The point is, if there is a key, for me, it's not existing only one key, But if there is something really important that you need to achieve in your industry, is that for becoming like a good professional, having a long career and at the end winning good money and blah, 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 is a specialization. So it means you need to be always there. You cannot, as I was saying before, I was not understanding head coach that in the morning was working in a bar. Was no. And my reality in Spain, our reality in Spain, Spanish coaches, is that we need to be working in other industries for winning enough money to survive as a coach. So for me was, okay, if I don't want to be in other industries that are putting me away of what is coaching, which industry is going to be helping me in being better coach? And for me, the answer was fitness. It's like, I'm going to be doing a sports science. I'm learning how the human body works. I want to be coach. What I can do out of coaching for winning money is personal training. It's being in the fitness world. It's being in gyms. Because I took a lot of knowledge in the fitness industry that was really useful for coaching. And longer than coaching for what I'm doing nowadays in terms of professionalization. Something that the fitness industry has inside the sports context is that fitness industry is much more professionalized than the sports industry, at least in Spain. So gyms, fitness companies are much more professional in terms of salaries, in terms of structures, in terms of professionals, in terms of learning development processes. That football is really amateur. Football in Spain is really a group of people that they love football and they want to be there, with no background, with no knowledge, with no interest of growing, of always keeping these old myths of football, really tradition, really working in football because always in football have been working in that sense. While fitness is the opposite. Fitness is innovation, technology, introducing new trends in training, trying to, this sales process, trying to bring more memberships to the gym. There are many, many, many things in terms of professional strategies that sports was not doing. And I learned because I needed to learn, because I was working there only for winning money, that money that I was using for surviving in the sports, in football industry.
Does it offer the benefit as well of, I could imagine the experiences you've accrued from going into fitness and sports science and other industries, does it allow you to offer a better sense of what high performance actually is as well, I'd imagine? Sure. Because, I think a coach's lens is sometimes, because it often is very pedagogical or technical, it's not always, coaches mostly need to outsource to other people for the reason of they don't understand sports science. I wonder if your experience seems to teach me that if you learn enough, at least to develop a working understanding of high performance, at least it gives you a better starting point to really create something that is high performance.
So for me, the big learning in the fitness industry was how poor, at least in Spain, I'm saying, speaking about my context, how poor was the professionalism level of the clubs in my country. Was like, man, there is no. I was very lucky at the same time because I was in the biggest fitness company in Catalonia, a company that is a Catalonian company, but in the city of Barcelona they had 25 gyms. So we had in global 100,000 memberships. It's a huge company with a huge social repercussion, and in that sense was kind of a multinational company. We had a lot of strategies, processes, internal operations that was like a huge international company. And I learned a lot. And when I was going to my industry, what I felt was my industry, that was football, and I was seeing how the clubs were managed, how was the approach of the coaches to the training process, to being involved. And I was like, man, so people is not taking serious this industry. It's like, this is kind of the hobby of people that at the same time they are winning more. But it's the hobby. Really, they care about being in the bank in the morning or being in their company, doing whatever, where they receive the big salary and then they come for 400 euros, 600 euros, 700 euros to coach in the afternoons. And I'm speaking about the pro clubs, semi-pro clubs. So for me, what is the mess? What a mess of situation, no? And in my case, for my professional career, I was different for that. Because it doesn't matter if I was winning 200 euros as a coach and I was winning 2,000 as a fitness technical director. Because if someone was asking me, which is your profession, I was saying head coach. I was saying football, not fitness. So it doesn't matter if I was spending in fitness 30 hours per week or 40 and 15 in coaching or 20 in coaching. My main career was coaching. So what I was doing is bringing all these professional aspect from fitness sector to football world that until maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago in Spain was missing. Now Spain have changed, but it was not changed 20 years ago when I started change like 5, 6 years ago. But there is still a lot of lack of professionalism in many of the clubs involved in the industry.
But see the way that you have found quite a clever way of like creating a narrative around yourself and be able to tell your story in a way that it so clearly distinguishes you from other people. I always think a lot of times, particularly we're in a football pathway, and it's the same for a lot of other sports where we're expected to go down the same route because you need the same accreditations and these sorts of things. So what often happens is everyone has the same story in a sense. So, and I just wonder, like, I see the benefits, I think, when I meet individuals like yourself, Alex, where they're able to tell a different story about themselves, because we all know similar things, but in interview panels or in how we can maybe, market ourselves and our own personal brand, I suppose, it seems like it's the storytelling sort of narrative that seems to be really important, I think, as a skill maybe to learn. I don't know, because I see it come out quite clearly in the way you're able to tell us, from the fitness and how you've combined that with neuroscience and all these other aspects. And how important is that narrative been for you and how you create your own narrative? Or is it, am I missing that maybe? Is this what would you say? Because I don't know if did your work taught?
Oh, you're bringing a key aspect, Mark, nowadays. You are bringing a key aspect. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a sports. Okay. But I did the master in psychology, the master in neuroscience, I made PhD have been in psychology, in football, but specialized in the area of psychology, and trying to understand psychology variables. If I need to explain kind of briefly how brain and as a result of brain function, mind is organized and created, we human beings individually, we are narrative, we are an history. This is our brain try to create for us not being crazy. So for me, what a human being unconsciously is trying to create, the brain, what is the function of our brain, is trying to create a narrative that has internal and external sense, internal and external coordination, And when we have mental problems, is when the internal history that we are explaining to ourselves related to the external history that we are explaining to people around us is unbalanced, is not coordinated. And this is where stress, anxiety, depressions come. When we feel that what we are offering outside is far away, is not connected within the things that we have inside, what we want to our life. And in that sense, our brain, our mind have the capacity to create everything we want. So in terms of creating a personality, we have the power to create whatever we want to be. It is not meaning that we are going to be achieving that. I'm not this kind of guy that believe that, no, if we imagine something, we are going to be able to be this something. Because this something needs to be happening in a context, in a real context, in a specific city, in a specific country, in a specific culture, that sometimes there are things that are bigger than us that they are not giving us the opportunity. No, for example, I wanted to be head coach, Carlo Ancelotti winning the Champions League. And at some point, I realized that I'm not going to be this kind of guy. I'm not going to be a head coach that I will be winning a Champions League. But this narrative of wanting to be a Carlo Ancelotti winning a Champions League made me, during many years, take some decisions that were fitting with this dream. So I have this personal goal, what I need to do for achieve this personal goal. So the decisions that I'm taking are fitting with the contextual or mental situations that I'm living. Yeah, they are fitting. I'm happy. I'm okay. At some point, the brain is always reevaluating this. It's like what I want to get, what decisions I'm taking. These decisions are putting me in a position of living the things that I want to live. Yeah. At some point, the reevaluation that is happening always, the reevaluation is giving me a situation that tells, look, attention, that maybe you are not going to become Carlo Ancelotti. What are you going to do? You need to kind of readapt. Like, you need to create a new narrative. It's like, okay, you need to accept that maybe something this is not going to happen. What could happen? And for me, in that sense, and I'm going to be speaking actual dreams. I'm an old guy, but I still believe in dreams. No. So I accepted that, okay, I will not be Carlo Ancelotti. But now, looking my career, my pathway, who I am now, okay, maybe I'm going to be able to win a Champions League, but I'm not going to be Ancelotti. Maybe I will be the assistant coach of a former player that will help from a technical guy that have been in the football industry for many years. So now I can construct a new narrative. And the new narrative can fit with what is happening in my external life. It's like, okay, now I accept that I will not win as a Carlo Ancelotti main character, main protagonist of this career, but I can win as a guy that will help another guy that will be the main, and I will be the assistant. And being the assistant is nice. So I create a new internal narrative where, look, you were no former player, but your knowledge, you are becoming an expert. You have knowledge, you have abilities, you have this, your career is nice, you have all the nice things, And it's all time this reevaluation and reconstruction of what is nice in your life. These nice things fit with the external thing that you are doing, and you need to be all time balancing this. And I think this is the goal of our brain at the end, creating a narrative that create a balance between the internal goals plus the external history that people around us is looking on us, And this is what personal goal of life, for being stable, and for being kind of self-determined as a human being.
Yeah, I love the way you've taken it. Because initially the way I was when I was pitching that question, I was thinking more around the narrative that we sell to other people about ourselves and the skills we have and the value we have. But alongside that, what you've sort of positioned there is the the need for consider the narrative you tell yourself, probably for your own well-being and for your own confidence to continue down a path that, I would wonder what you think. It does often seem like coaches are told that unless you have a very specific vision of success, then your outcome isn't really success. And I think this is maybe a lesson on, we can have rationality, but we can still be ambitious. So it's sort of like, if your success is always deemed by something you aren't in control of, go to Champions League, because there's so much celebrity in football that I think a lot of coaches embark on a career path in football that if they don't become the person that's on the news, they see themselves as a failure. But it's like, maybe part of the reason why you might be hitting your head against the wall is that you're moving towards a space that you won't get access to just through the statistical probabilities, but you might get closer towards it if you redirect your path towards what you are good at, what you can do. And then from there, all of a sudden, you kind of end up raising the roof a little bit in your career potential, because that's an avenue that's less charted upon because people assume it's not as lucrative or this or that. But it's also an open market, and a market that's perhaps more niche, and where all of a sudden you can cultivate skills that more people want, and more people then all of a sudden want to talk to you around. It's interesting as you say that. A lot of the kind of thoughts are coming in my head.
I like the reflections that you're doing. So obviously all these things that I have already explained related how brain and what is the main goal of the brain in function that is creating this narrative. Obviously, if we go to a business sector nowadays, as you go to an MBA, it's transforming this concept that you were saying, personal branding. But this personal branding as a concept, it's only the expression of this mental function. And related to the thing that you were saying now, the point is that people is not doing that. So, I think, so the people don't understand that the main function of the brain is creating this narrative. And you need to create this internal narrative in consistency with the external activity that you are doing, not for having kind of a professional success, but you need to create that for personal development. So it's the goal of your brain. And you cannot take out of the equation. It means brain is organized for this self-development. And the self-development is based on creating the narrative while you are living. What happened with many people? As I am saying, the narrative has sense when there is a balance between in and out. Many people, they don't focus in the balance. Or they only focus in the in, or they only focus in the out. And when we go to the concept, these professional concepts of personal development, personal brand, you were speaking before about the storytelling, the personal storytelling and personal brand. This for me, it's kind of picking a natural strategy of the brain that exists and using it kind of a non-humanistic way, only as a professional strategy, losing out of the sense of the process, in the sense of the person, the professional, understand that he needs to create an image, but this image is not related to the internal things that he believes or thinks or want to create. It's only, I'm doing, and I created this personal brand because in the last MBA lesson, a professional told me to create a personal brand. But what's the sense of that? It's for selling me out. But what I'm selling out have internal sense, internal consistency with me. They are not doing these kind of questions. And if they are doing these kind of questions, they are not looking for the answers. And then you have a lot of people in our industry that they are looking for being in the industry, not for being in the industry itself, not because they want to be there, because the lights and the cameras, because are so nice. Because there is a cognitive process inside of us that is called ego. That there is many people that they are in this side of the ego development process that is based on, I want people around me perceiving and feeling that I'm there. Why? Obviously, they will need to go to science. This is a question for psychiatrists or psychologists, or why the ego for human beings is so relevant. I understand that there is a point of what ego is bringing us to the sense of feeling, of living, of obviously it's kind of the tool of our brain to say, we are here. I'm nothing. Ego is kind of the opposite of nothing. But many people look this in the direction of, I want to be in the picture. Because being in the picture is what kind of, I'm scared of not being in the picture. It's not thinking more in the sense of, why is the picture relevant? Why I want to be there? So they're in the picture only for the opposite of not being, because people is scared of not being, not because, look, in my case, for me, I'm the football not for the picture. I'm a guy that I have been lucky enough for being in really big or non-big or medium big projects with the possibility of being in a lot of parties, ceremonies, being a picture. But there are very few pictures of me when you Google my name. No, we are in an era that all of us, you can Google the name. And the point, I think, is because I did the natural process, not in the sense of the personal branding, that this new concept that is arising in the past year, and obviously social media is pushing a lot with this concept of personal branding, but in the sense of internal personal development. Like, I was kind of always interested of this, in the sense of who I'm going to be. I was really early doing these kind of questions. I don't know why. As the people around me, it's like, now that I'm old, it's really surprising some processes that I started very young with no reasons at all, because I didn't have a big trauma. I grew up in a kind of regular family. We were not a rich family, but medium-class family. I mean, I had all things I needed. When I wanted more expensive things, my parents told me, go and work, but you have all basic things covered. So I was kind of nice guy. I was training. I used to play football, but really early really early, I started to meditate, to go through mindfulness meditation or whatever. And really early, it's like 23, 24 years old. And meditation, for example, for all people that do mindfulness and all of that, it's kind of really internal process where you start to do this kind of questions. Who do you want to be? Who you are? What have been your mistakes? Why do you feel it this way? Really starting to do this reflection process on feelings, emotions, anger, frustration. And why I did that, I don't know. But really early, I started in this process. And now that I'm old, I realize that people in Western societies, they are not doing this kind of process. And now they like very much speaking about personal branding, following strategies where, look, my image is important, the clothes I wear, how I speak, how I move the hands, how other people see me. But if you look, all of these strategies are external strategies. You are never solving the question, is who you are and who do you want.
Is there a tension there, however, just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, to like, because we're wanting, this is almost a perspective, we're wanting outwards from the internal, but where does it then meet with, as we've alluded to earlier in the conversation, about some of the realities of this sector? Because I always think, because in the same, I think there can be a degree in which clubs can exploit value that people want to bring to themselves by just growing as an individual. And they do that, and they almost leverage that to the employee, to the coach, as a wage, as a payment in itself, to make up for the fact that they pay horribly. So, like, I wonder where the tension is between doing what you love and what you value and what you feel is integrated with the self, and actually making sure at the same time that you're in a vocation that's profitable, that's sustainable for yourself, for your family, these sorts of things. Because how do we, is that just a tension that just needs to exist together? Or what's your thoughts on that? Because again, football should be at the upper echelons of the sport, quite a lucrative thing, quite a lucrative job. A lot of people are attracted to that. And even those who maybe aren't so much in the rat race to be the very top of the ladder, they may be healthy and content in themselves, but they are struggling financially because the sector itself just doesn't provide them with what they need in that respect as well. So can that sit inside the dialogue that you're suggesting, Alex, around how we might plan and chart out our careers? Can money not serve in any sort of valid way for what we need to accept as unacceptable, or what we should be pushing for, what we can contend with at the current moment?
So for me, first of all, need to be an acceptance of what is the reality where you are going to be living, and not complain, as I was saying before. So who is looking, for example, in the head coaching career, looking for a stable, a safe profession? So you are mistaken from the very first step. So it's like, man, it's not your career. You just want to be stable, study finance and go to a bank and sit always in the same bank. No one is going to fire you, and banks are not going to go down. So, I mean, we are in a capitalist system. You need banks. So for sure, banks are going to be stable. So if you are looking for stability, don't come to sports, or in this case, don't come to football. This needs to come as just reality. Saying that, it's kind of, okay, I will take the risk. I will go to football industry and I accept that it's unstable. But obviously, we are taking this decision at the same time. We want to reduce the instability. It's like, okay, accepting that this industry is tough, how I'm able to have the longer career. For me, it's you need to be the best in your profession. As I was saying before, the specialization. And you need to answer the question of how you are able to become the best specialist. You know, for example, the concept of being professional. What defines a good professional? External behaviors, external rules that people see, or internal approach to the way of working. And for me, something that you cannot fake. So for me, the question of the professional to who is the best or who is a good professional is not based on external behaviors, but in an internal approach of how do you do your work in the day by day. You know, there is a really interesting theory, you know, in psychology, this achievement goal theory, no, that is saying, look, people when came to sport, they are focusing 2 things. What? The results, the picture if you win at the end, or mastery the process. For me, this theory is really nice in the sense of there is many people focused in the result. And that is why there is a lot of frustration. Result is the money you win, the trophies you win, the score of the game at the end of the game, of a football game, no? And there is many people focus on. And there is a huge level of frustration when in the day by day you are not winning prizes, you are not winning with good money, when you are not winning games, and when you are not winning trophies at the end. Because for me, all these rewards are going to come after a process, no? After this concept of mastering the process. And the final achievement, the score, the prize, could be only as a result of this process. So for me, always the approach was, man, I need to be able to master it, no? In that sense, being professional inside the industry. I want to become a good professional, not because people is going to be watching me. It's because I need to be a good professional. It's an internal acceptation of that to try to achieve my goals. And who is not doing this, it's kind of, you are able to feel when you work with people that, respect the rules, but they respect the rules not because they believe in them. It's because they know that they're smart guys and they know, okay, these rules need to be applied. I know, arriving in time, try to deliver the projects before the deadline, many other things. But it's not because they believe in it. I mean, in the moment of they can escape. In the moment they can save 2 pages and instead of doing 12, they do 10. And if there is the possibility of doing 8, they do 8 instead of 10, you know? It's like only filling the gaps because it's socially demanded, or in your industry is demanded. For me, it's not enough. I have been working with many people that they are working like that. It is, they are smart enough to complete what is required, but they are not able to go out of the requirement. When you are with people that have internalized this concept of, no, I don't care what is the square, because I know that my way of working will fulfill the square and will be much bigger than the square, you know? And this is what, for me, when I try to decide who I want to be, related to this concept of personal branding and which kind of a specialist or professional I want to be, is what I wanted to create. Because it's not going to be based on where I'm working. It doesn't matter the institution where I'm working, because my rules of working are set up by myself. Arriving in time, on how many working time hours I'm going to put, what is the quality of the work that I'm going to be providing, is not related to what the guy is in front of me is asking to me. It's me who is settling this level, you know? And this, for me, you need to do this process of creating that. Because this, you cannot fake, you know? And this is but you need to be in this self-construction process of what you want to offer.
Yeah, plus I suppose that puts you back in control as well, I suppose, so then all of a sudden you aren't relying on some outcome just manifesting. And it might never appear, so there's no point as well. You have to look to find joy in what you do each day. as well for that same reason, and that
Yeah,
might maybe
and I'm not going there off, obviously, to this part of passion and commitment, and for sure. I'm not going there.
So I'm quite intrigued to move towards your more recent roles that are more now about project management. Now, maybe we can set this up somewhat by how can a coach evolve from being a coach who maybe deals with one team to then a coach who is actually moved into an operational leadership role to, I mean, you've now taken up lots of roles as technical director. Obviously, you're now working in Saudi Arabia with Balad, starting a new football club. That's such an exciting, ambitious project. How does a coach reach those points? And I know we're doing it, obviously, with the asterisks, we're not then telling other coaches that they must do that and that's their journey. But how did you transition into more of a strategic direction role and giving leadership there? And can you maybe talk a little bit about your experiences there? How do you succeed there?
So, as I was saying, the idea was I want to become the best head coach. Study sports science, understand how to increase performance in people. But career, Spain, my context, head coaching in early stages when you are 20 to 21, you are starting an academy. Good academies they are paying 200 euros, 300 euros, but 400 euros if you move in big teams. And then you need to do other things, no? As I said before, feelings, and I gain a lot of professional strategies, operations, a different way of understanding the sports context, the sports industry. So this was already with me, no? And at the same time that I was developing my professional career as a head coach, was going well, really. I was able to get good results. Some seasons that you only lose 1 game, 2 games in full season. So people has a respect. This is why they put me in the position of teaching the UEFA license in the Catalonian Federation. So I was winning this repercussion. But at the same time, I discovered that, look, they did this progression. Yeah, it's nice, but salary is 100 euros, 500 euros. I need to be in the same club doing sporting direction, doing managing stages, opening the academy inside, altogether, maybe I'm winning a complete salary, 1,500, something like that. But at the same time, I have a personal, It's like, I want to have a wife, I want to have kids, man, these conditions really. And I was watching past guys, more experienced guys, all the coaches, all of them jumping city to city, most of them who are in the industry knows getting divorced, kind of situations that I don't want to live. So I want kind of having bigger conditions, where I can be stable with my wife, I can provide to my kids, and all of that. So at some point, I decided, look, I need to open. So something that is happening naturally in the industry, in my clubs or my career, that people is offering me doing more things inside the clubs. Maybe I need to open to, as I said before, going to other countries, exploring other kind of projects. Obviously, I'm continue kind of trying to be head coach in a club, but I cannot be close to other opportunities that can help me discover better positions. And in my case, the jump to Angola, to Africa, was as a physical trade, because the lessons that I was doing I was teaching in the UEFA license, I was teaching what was, I do the translation, was training methodology. I was teaching sports training. I was teaching physical or conditioning training. So I was doing different, And one of my former students, he asked me, Alex, I have had a huge offer in this country. I'm going to go to this B team of the biggest club in the country. I want you on my side. The specialist guy. I don't have knowledge for understanding how to manage the load in a microcycle, all the conditioning in the gym, blah, 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 this kind of stuff. And for me, it was like, man, I can do it. So I can do it, as I was saying, and this is coming, one of the big things, the big concepts that head coaches need to work on is this ego development. Sometimes people think, no, I cannot be an assistant of no one. I need to be always the head coach, the main guy. And at that point, they say, no, I can. I understand what is the role. I have been head coaching, being the main guy of a team, but my knowledge can be used in this new role. It's only understanding that my role is different. I'm not the head coach. I'm the assistant coach. So it's going to be another guy who is going to be the main leader. And what I need to be doing is supporting the main leader and understanding what an assistant coach needs to be doing for increasing the performance of the squad. I accepted that. Was not a problem for me being assistant in the first time instead of being the head coach. And things were really nice, were really smoothly. We won in 3 years. We won twice the national tournament. We moved to professional league as an assistant coach. And I discovered that my knowledge is for there. It's about myself accepting that I can be in a different role where I'm not taking the main decisions. I giving opinions to another guy that he's going to be taking the main decisions, no? Obviously, you have not done this never. At the beginning, it's kind of a strange situation while you have been during 5, 6, 7 years taking the decision in the sense of 11 starter, the changes, the game system, the specific game plan. So there is a part of combining these variables, no? It's like, man, I was doing that, but where I was doing that, there was not no money. No, I'm able to be in another context where I have much more money, where I can live another kind of experiences. And for me, at the same time, as we were speaking before, my internal narrative was always not related to external risk, because I understood that I needed to create an internal narrative. And the internal narrative is, what do you want to be? Or what do you want to do? And my point was, I want to be in the football industry. Doesn't matter. It's his head coach, assistant coach, academy director. It doesn't matter. So maybe some guys can tell me, yeah, and this is why you are not doing a career as a head coach. Because at some point, my answer was not being head coach, but being inside the football industry. That this is what I am doing. So, I mean, there is a point that you need to choose where you put your energy. And I prefer to put the energy in being inside the industry than being head coach inside the industry. Because I understood that was too risky. So it was not deserving. The choice of the pathway of only being head coach, for me, the probability of being out of the industry was bigger than becoming head coach. And in that sense, this analysis of probabilities put me in the situation of, I prefer not to be in the head coach, not to be the main guy in the picture, but doing a long career in the industry. As I was able to survive in Angola, a huge success, we won a lot, and personal reasons brought me to Oman, Middle East, where my position from an assistant coach in Angola, I became, and they started to come for me the experiences of management, pure management. I moved from Angola, assistant, high performance football, pure technical football, to open a private academy in Middle East. While my goal was an absolutely other kind of things. In Oman, my main goal was looking for sponsors, management, putting together coaches, education, creating a structure. So now I'm opening a football club, but in Oman I was opening only an academy. No senior team, only talent development, and not high performance. On my case, Oman, it's a really kind of a small industry in terms of performance, if we speak in this way. Obviously, there is a lot of families that they want to have their kids training, but not with a purpose of there is a big league, a big national team, or whatever. We're most kind of an academy, where people go and play. And in that sense, my role was opening the academy. It was a foundation, was a new academy, and I opened everything. And my role was more like my partner was an Omani guy, no background, no knowledge, nothing, was like a nomad guy with a dream that having his own academy and was in charge of management. And this is what brought me where I was able to put all my abilities, one, in the fitness industry. This is what I used in Oman. And then when I moved to Madrid, was the combination of everything. Was this opportunity of teaching that for me was natural context, obviously, bachelor, master's, teaching in the National Federation in Catalonia. So I had this background experience, was a natural kind of going inside university, was really nice. And when Real Madrid approached me and asked me for developing this project of the master, for me was like, man, what I'm going to be doing is a master that I needed in my career. A master that combined the training, the high performance, the things that are happening in the technical field, plus the management. The how to manage an academy, how to manage a football club, how to be involved in a professional club. Because at that time, my discovery after 12 years in the industry was inside the clubs, there is a need, because there is a lack of this knowledge of people.
That's what I was wanting to ask you, because when you chart out where things went for you and how that then came about, that you then started to work under the Madrid partnership and the Masters being Programme Director at Universidad de Europea, like, I couldn't imagine you being equipped to have done that if you'd concentrated fully in the sort of route that people would have expected of a football coach. Like, it sounds like you created such a niche for yourself, getting really, really good and developing a really tight expertise in terms of like your educational background, and then going and doing the roles that perhaps people might overlook because they're so focused on the head coach. And it sounds like you've amalgamated those experiences together, and now all of a sudden you've accrued the social capital that's then you can cash back in to then actually make yourself be so attractive in a way that's so different from other people. It just seems to really show the power of how we can really separate ourselves while still, I know there's a more of a philosophical argument about, while still being in touch with our internal dialogue of what we want to be in and not being too, taken hostage by what the external is telling us we should do and what we need to have at certain points of our career. It seems like the patience that you've showed, Alex, has actually paid off for that as a bit of a lesson, I suppose, for other people to a point.
If we are in kind of this old conversation that imagine that you and me, we have now 65 years old, close to die, thinking when we want to live for the young people. Imagine that we have this kind of conversation nowadays. If I need to say something, it's patience. For me, the biggest mistake I have had when I was really young, like 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 years old, and I remove from the question from some life learnings that I have, if I need to say to the young guys, and I'm telling, for example, when I'm teaching in the MBA or in my master, is be patient. That's it, being patient. At the end, things will arrive if they need to arrive. And at the same time, with this being patient is accept what life is going to be provided for you. So, because, I totally agree with what we are saying. So,
and that's counter, isn't it,
I
Alex?
think that this balance from positions, the moving from one position to another, make me put my professional career in a position that I was able to use this different background at some different points in the, I don't know how to say in English, but in these stages that they are coming later. It's like the master, for example, is a creation of the resume, the putting together 12 years of experience. Was like what I have been living, what I have been learning in the industry that I have been coach, assistant, physical, manager, academy director. I have learned that is missing this, and this in the football players. So as this is missing, I'm going to create a program that fulfill these gaps. And now with the master, I increase my network, I want knowledge. I have been with so amazing people, some specialists of different areas where I didn't have specific knowledge. I don't know, maybe sporting laws, for example, I'm now thinking, or project development, because in my master I brought some project development guys much older than me. I have been speaking to them. I have been in lunch with them, in dinners with them. And when the opportunity of coming to Saudi Arabia to open a club arrives, obviously I have my background. I opened a master, I opened an academy. I was in the opening of a gym many years ago. I have this background, but at the same time, the master put me in the position of being surrounded with people that have been developing this kind of project. Altogether, say to myself, I'm ready for that.
Can I ask a question there as well? Because I'm quite interested to know and learn a bit more about the real strong sort of international outlook that I've always felt you've had. And obviously I was fortunate enough to spend a bit of time with yourself, Alex, at the university and getting to interact with some of the students and the staff in Real Madrid. But something that was so clear to me was just how impoverished I felt by comparison from a cultural upbringing that isn't global. It's, I think the British approach often isn't really to travel outside of leisure. It's always tends to be fairly closed house. But it just seemed like such a strength, because when I interacted with yourself and the students, that they just seemed so much more durable people and so much more flexible people in these sort of ways. And I just wonder if we're talking about within the football sector, but it might extend to the sporting sector. It's a global market nowadays, so it's not just a local market. Is that something that how have you carried that with you, if you have at all? But what's the feeling around that? It just seems like such a strength, and it's so obvious when you lack it when you see people that have it, which is why I'm quite curious about your perspective on that sort of stuff.
So in the sense of being able, like with many different cultures.
Yeah, to a point, or just, the fact that you've went and worked in different countries, You've interacted with different people with the same international outlook, that sort of thing.
I think that this is kind of a skill, really typical skill that people like to put in the CV, but not many people is strong in putting their kind of in the real life, So I think that is for sure is one of the traits. I totally agree. I don't know how to explain exactly. I'm going to try. So obviously, I had a personal interest on trying to discover how big the world was in terms of cultural development, and this is my personal interest. So, an example of that, for example, I'm a Spanish guy, European guy. I never had interest in going to the USA. Never. Why? Because I felt that in terms of civilization, in terms of culture, USA and Europe were so close that had no interest for me. And always I have been traveling to contexts and places that they are so different to me. Because I have this kind of natural personal interest. My first important trips with 2021 were to South America, Latin America, Uruguay. Some people will say, but this is very close to Spain because they speak Spanish. I think it's that not. I think we are closer between Portuguese, Italian, French guys because we are European. So that sense is bigger, the European culture, than the culture that we are sharing with Latin America, where there is another weather, another way of being, another government systems, another history, I think, in terms of common history. I realized that, when I was, my trips were through Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, I feel more attached with an Italian guy than with a guy of Uruguay or Argentina, in that sense. I don't have sense for the people that what I live was like this. After Latin America, my next trips were to always had a personal interest in Africa, but I started for Asia and Middle East. I started to travel to Asia, Middle East. India was an amazing discovery for me. Spent weeks there and was fascinating. I had no interest for going, for example, to Germany. I have not been in Germany or to the Netherlands. I have been once in Amsterdam or twice in Amsterdam, but only in the city. I had no interest for me because I was feeling that we were so close. I prefer to go to India. While many people say, India is shit, this organization is blah, blah, blah. But for me, it was like personal discovery of the culture, how a civilization is going there, the civilizatory difference. And for example, I had this dream of going to Africa, and I was able to live this dream at the same time that I was working in the professional industry. And I lived in Africa for many years, and discovering how people live there, they use the culture, the traditions, the religion, the blah, 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 blah. And then I moved to Middle East, that I was looking for that, for living in Middle East at the same time. No? And obviously, with all of that, I need to say, I discovered one thing. Traveling is not open the mind of no one. This is a lie. When people say, no, travel around, open the mind of people. No. I have been traveling around. I have been living in many countries, in many countries. What opened the mind of people is the attitude of the people to open the mind. When you travel, the people that they are open-minded, and I consider myself an open-minded. So this is why I'm able to travel abroad and live and be in other countries, is because I'm open-minded and I'm able to adapt to different cultures. At the same time that I was traveling, I discovered that people that they are not open-minded, when they traveling, they are reinforcing their close-minded. So I have been in Africa with people that they were open-minded, and we enjoyed Africa together. And for example, like in my group of friends, we are people that after 10 years in Angola, we continue to have a good relationship. For example, we spent Christmas together with our sons, with our daughters together from 10 years ago because we love Africa. We love being there. We love the chaos. We love this organization. And through all these African strugglings, we create a huge relationship because we love that time. Because for European guys in Angola, the experience was amazing. But at the same time, at that period of time, I had shared time with people that they were landing in Africa saying Africa is shit. And after 2 years, they went back home saying Africa is shit. And during these 2 years, the experience was shit. And they were living with us. They were coming from the same country or from the same region. They were Europeans. They worked in the same projects. They were in the same industries. They were, for example, in football in my case. And they were in the same city. Was always the same, only the same. And for example, now I'm in Middle East. I love Middle East. I love Oman. I love Emirates, I love Qatar, I love Saudi Arabia. And at the same time, in the same industry, in the same region, I have people coming from Europe telling me Saudi Arabia is shit, Oman is shit, and Qatar is shit. The only difference is not the region itself, are not the cultural difference. It's the mental approach of people going to these kind of experiences. You can be open-minded. You can accept that all of us, we are human beings, and historical development of the regions put us in different eventual situations, and you accept that, and you try to learn why in Europe things happen like this and why Middle East things happen like that. No, you can come with a close-minded thinking that, look, Europe in this case, for example, the mainstream approach is Europe is the best and all what is happening out of Europe is shit. For me, it's so simplistic. And this is what makes sometimes for some people, some experiences so difficult to understand. And for me, in my case, being open-minded, that is trying to understand how people live in other regions, I have an approach to cultural or to civilizations that I want to understand.
But I think the point that you made there, Alex, was that it's not transactional. To be open-minded isn't transactional. It's not like buy a plane ticket and you'll come back necessarily a different person. Maybe we need to work on ourselves at home first, and that has to then be, it's more of a, you could go abroad and not necessarily get the benefit you want to get, and it's probably because you're carrying still yourself abroad, and it's not necessarily that the move abroad is going to change you as an individual. So it's an interesting perspective, the way the way you look at that. It's quite different actually, in a way. It's quite refreshing too. So because that is the general narrative, that go abroad, come back open-minded, and it's like, and I'd probably say that actually to me empowers coaches to recognise that you can find new ways of and new perspective where you're currently at as well, because some people are restricted in their ability to travel as well. You can still develop a wider perspective on things at home because it's not based on where you go but how you are and how you act, isn't it? It's a mentality. So I think that's good. I mean, I see that even someone that delivers coach education, I still have people that come onto courses that you do see it has been more about their own personal monologue and them just looking for further validation of an already fairly cemented view on things. So it's like, we shouldn't waste time here then. It should maybe just either you just chat to yourself in an empty room, or you actually come with the intention to want to learn. And in that case, it shouldn't matter where you go. You're going to have opportunity that's quite ripe, I suppose, regardless. So thanks so much. Now, Alex, I'm conscious of our time as well. So if I can challenge you here to maybe give us, just as a means of summarising some of the things we've spoken about, from your experiences to date then, if you were to give like coaches that are listening 3 kind of coach hats for their career or for their development, what would be the 2 or 3 main learning points that you would like to give, maybe succinctly, just to summarise the conversation that listeners can maybe hold on to?
Look, yesterday I had a conversation with my coaches here. I have Saudi coaches. One of our goals is trying to bet on the national talent, no? We can have a very long discussion about this talent, but in any case, we want to push in terms of not only players but technical staff, because here in Saudi, really the boards of the big clubs are not thinking in Saudi coaches, no? And we were speaking about this specifically to them. In my case, it's to them because I want them better, no? First point: what is the main goal of a head coach? For me, the main goal of a head coach, it's this English word that I like a lot, and we don't have in Spanish, and I don't like how it sounds. That is empowering people. The point that coaches, if there are many coaches listening to us now, is that the question need to be, have you the tools to empower people around you? This is what you need to ask yourself. So people is better when you are there. And obviously, if we go specifically to a changing room, to a squad, no? It's like, do you know how to make these 25 individuals better? What is needed for that? Maybe, and we are going to the second pillar, no? That is knowledge, is learning. So maybe some coaches are going to go, we are now in the dictatorship of the tactical. We are now in a very tactical football. Coaches love this sentence of, the team plays as I wanted to, as I have been working during all week. For me, this sentence is expressing the defeat of the goal of a coach. The team need to be playing in a way that is better than you were expecting. And this is empowering people. Empowering people is bringing people to a position where they are able to do things that neither you and them, they imagine that they can be there. And this can be done through a training process. And nowadays, I'm tired of this sentence of, we lose, but I'm happy because the team did what we were practicing. Or at the same, or I'm happy we win because the team put what we were practicing. For me, the work of a coach is much bigger than that. It's not, this sentence of the coaches for me is about based on repetition. It's like, okay, I'm going to be practicing this during the week. And if these guys are able to repeat what we have been practicing during the week, I'm happy. It's like, no, man, we are open systems. It means the player can be doing much more things that I'm able to imagine. This need to be there. And for sure, first of all, coaches, you need to imagine that. You need to be able to empower coaches, players in this direction. Not only players, because you are the leader of technical staff. It means you are able to empower technical staff and players. You are able to create this context where they feel that they can propose things that they are huge, that they are big, much bigger than you are able to think. This is only coming through knowledge. It means that you need to be learning. And this knowledge needs to be multidisciplinary knowledge in the sense of it's not only about technique and tactics. It's about human relations. It's about psychology. It's about sharing time. It's about experiences, because head coaches is not only what's happening in the training process, but what's happening out. If you are doing activities, if you are doing trips, stages, if you are traveling in and out because you are in a big team, you need to be picking flights and you are spending a lot of time together. So in that sense, your knowledge needs to be multidisciplinary in the sense of I need to be able to approach the guy much bigger than only technical, tactical analysis of what they are doing. Because at the end, football is kind of a cultural expression. I mean, if I have Brazilian guys in my team, how I'm able to help Brazilians that are absolutely different of having Saudi guys or having East European guys coming from Russia, Slovenia, Slovakia, or this kind of things. No? This for me will be the three pillars. No, empower, prepare yourself through knowledge, and multidisciplinary knowledge based on football is about cultural approach, is human expression.
No, absolutely fantastic. No, thanks so much, Alex, for sparing your time. I know you're such a busy person, so it's been just a terrific conversation. And yeah, we'll call it there. For those that are listening, guys, I hope that you found that conversation. It's certainly just as I found it. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.